Well, good morning, YouTube. This is Chuck, and it's Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, and it's about 8:30 in the morning, and I'm on my way home from the mountain. And so figured I'd stop here along the lake and tell you about a little bit about what happened last night and what's going to happen next. But first, let me give you a little pan around and tell you about the area. This is Roosevelt Lake. And you remember Roosevelt Lake from my question and answer video a while back about how much you knew about Arizona? I'm going to show you the bridge over there. Sorry about the sun. I'm going to give you the rest of the pan around here. We even got a garbage truck coming across the bridge. See the rest of the pan around. Home is up that direction. I'm on my way home. Last night we had quite a bit of activity, nothing that would rank in the top 10, although two of the guys did have sightings. Chris had a full solid sighting of one walking near my van. My van was parked about 150 feet away from where we were sitting. There's a little flat spot down there that I like. And then his son Greg was there with us, and Greg also had a sighting near my van, and saw one standing behind it right by the spare tire cover, and in full solid form. And then a little bit later, right where we were sitting at, Chris got up and kind of walked over to the side a little bit, and there was a tree about 10 feet away from him, and I saw a dark mass move toward that tree, and I couldn't identify it, but then I saw a shoulder reach out and look out around the tree, and the moon was out and it was pretty bright, and the head was still in the shadow. I didn't see the head, but I did see the shoulder, that big bulky shoulder stick right out into the bright moonlight as it leaned out from behind the tree to take a look at Chris, and Chris was about 10 feet away. So I'm not going to call that for my purposes, I'm not going to call it as a sighting because I didn't see it well enough. But we had quite a bit of activity. A lot of the shadowy figures around us that you can't really identify, they stayed a little bit away. I did have the first night, I had contact with one that gave me his name. He told me his name was Nevet. And originally I thought that was a young one that was standing right in front of me, a little about 4 foot tall. And if you remember from my last video, the three of the other guys saw it as well. So it wasn't just me. But last night Nevet came back, and it turns out Nevet is a young adult male. About probably, I don't know, it's got to be 7.5, 8 feet tall. And at one point he came and stood next to me in cloaked form. And that's when he communicated with me briefly in mind speak. And I asked him if he was our camp watcher, and he told me he was. And then a little bit later, he came and he stood off slightly to my left. Well, about that time, Chris and Kevin decided they were going to get up and go for a walk down the road a little bit. And so Chris stood up and he saw Nevet standing there, but he wasn't going to say anything because he was standing pretty close to me. So if they walked away, he told Kevin, he said, when we left, I saw one standing next to Chuck. Let's see if Chuck says anything about it. And when they came back, I told him about it. So that was confirmation to me that he was actually there. So there's a lot of people who do a lot of squatching that would be absolutely blown away by what we had last night. But for us, it was pretty mundane. And at one point, we asked them how many were there, and they told us 6 and more were coming. And then a little bit later, they told us that there was 11 of them there. And so a pretty active evening. It was a lot colder last night. The storm system came through and dropped the temperature about probably at least 10 degrees. When I got up yesterday morning, it was 53 in the van. When I got up this morning, it was 42. And it was kind of chilly. So I'm back down here in the desert now, and it's pretty warm. As you can see, I'm back in a t-shirt. But I'm headed home. I'm gonna try to shoot a windshield tour video and maybe a firefighter story video at a couple locations before I get home. We'll just see how that goes. But before I leave you here, let me tell you just a little bit more about here. I'm gonna spin you back around again and walk up and look at this sign over here. If all of you hadn't heard about it, there's a trail that goes from the Mexican border all the way up to the Utah state line called the Arizona Trail. And the Arizona Trail crosses right here. In fact, you literally walk across the bridge. And this little sign here tells about the Arizona Trail. I'll get up there and It's right into the sun. I'll try to get you at a slight angle. Maybe you can pause it and read that if you want to. And let me hold it there. If you want to read that, go ahead and pause it. You can read what it says. But the trail actually comes in on the other side over there. You walk across the bridge, and then right at the end of that guardrail across the road over there, that's where the trail takes off and goes right behind that 88 sign. You can see the trail marker, and that trail goes across and up into the Madazels and goes up past Payson and goes up toward Pine. Get back over here where the van's at, and goes all the way to the Utah border. Now, I had a little kind of interesting story, and let me walk back over here by the van. So, actually, I'll go right over here by this rock, and then I can turn the camera around there. But, here a couple weeks ago, I was over at the museum and getting the old fire truck ready for I think it was getting it ready for the car show, I believe I was. And a guy pulled in there with a van, a Sprinter van. It was a Winnebago Rebel, one of their off-road models. And so he was there pretty close, and he was outside. So I was over there talking to him about the van and that kind of thing. And the guy's name was Tim. And Tim, if you're watching this, hi. But anyway, we got to talking about vans and stuff. And then he got telling me what he was there for. And his wife is a long-distance solo hiker. And she was hiking the Arizona Trail, a segment at a time. And he was her support vehicle, and so they'd contact each other, and she'd if she had a long section where she had to stay overnight, she'd spike out somewhere overnight, and then wherever the roads came next time it came to meet him, then he'd pick her up. And they live down by Tucson, and she's hiked most of the trail, but she was actually hiking the section up in the Madazel Wilderness, and that was where she was at. And he had the little tracker thing, little satellite tracker that told him exactly where she was at any one time. And she had a panic button, so if something bad happened, she could, push the button. But I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought that was great support. And she was doing the Arizona Trail, and she had actually done, he told me she had done the Pacific Crest Trail. And that goes all the way from the Mexican border up through California and Oregon and Washington, all the way to the Canadian border. And that's a massive hiking undertaking, and she'd done it all solo and just doing it in segments. And she'd done a lot of the Arizona Trail as well. And so she was doing this section, and this section up there in the Madazels is no joke. It's pretty tough country up there. And so she was doing that, and so I gave him my number, and he texted me a little bit later and said that she wanted to get picked up, and he asked me about a particular road and whether I thought he could get in there with his van or not. And so I gave him instructions on how to get in there, and told him let me know sometime how she's doing. And so I haven't heard anything back from him, but it's just interesting people you meet, and it's just kind of amazing. And he wasn't there because of the museum. He was actually there just because he was killing time at the park. But interesting story nonetheless. So I think right now I'm gonna end this one here. I'll get back with. Oh, I got one more little tidbit I didn't talk about the first night, and so let me tell you about that. I should probably reshoot this one and put that in line where it belongs, but I'm going to add it to the end here. At one point, Kevin and I decided to go walking down the road a little bit. And so we got up and we walked about 25 feet away from where we were sitting. And all of a sudden, he was walking right alongside me. We were maybe, 2-3 feet apart at the most. And all of a sudden, it was like we walked into a wall. And he actually bounced off the wall, and they didn't want him to go any farther. They wanted him to stay there. Well, I hit the wall, and I went on through it. And what it felt like, I have no idea what it was, but what it felt like is it felt like you walked into a wall full of Jell-O. And I popped in right throughout the other side, and it stunned me for a little bit, momentarily, but it didn't stop me from walking. But I actually felt like I walked right through something. But it affected Kevin differently, and they apparently indicated to him they didn't want him to leave. So I ended up going a little walk by myself. But I didn't talk about that yesterday. I forgot to mention it on the video yesterday that I shot up there with all the pretty leaves. Now we're down in the desert, and it's a lot warmer. So anyway, as I said before, I'm on my way back home. I'll tell you, as I always do, take care of each other, love each other. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. We had a good trip so far. And I've got I think I'm going to try to shoot a windshield tour of Tonto Basin this morning. We'll see how that goes. And then I have a firefighter story I want to tell, and it's a sad one, but it needs to be told. So I'll get back with you on that. And I've been wanting to shoot that one for quite a while, and I'm going right by the location. So I think I'll try to stop and do that today if I can get my head right. So until I talk to you again, I'll just tell you it's a wonderful day, and peace out for now.